And visiting also with us, we will hear from her shortly, is our dear sister, Mrs. Rhoda Green. But we will hear from her in a few minutes. Members of the choir, the welcome song. And members of All Souls as well. Family, we are family. Jesus, He is our God. And we're so glad you've come here to worship. We welcome you in the name of the Lord. Family, we are family. Jesus, He is our God. And we're so glad you've come here to worship. We welcome you in the name of the Lord. We welcome you in the name of the Lord. And now I'm going to invite Sister Andrea to come forward again. Andrea is the coordinator for our end of season of emancipation activity with the viewing. And we are delighted on that occasion. We were only able, at least I was only able to see Mrs. Rhoda Green via Zoom. So I'm very delighted to have been able to welcome you this morning in person. Of course, your husband is also here with you, and we are happy and delighted to have you with us. So I'm now going to ask Sister Andrea to just introduce Mrs. Green and allow her to say a few words.
Thank you, Reverend Ellis. It's indeed a pleasure to stand here before you and introduce you to Mrs. Rhoda A. Green, Barbados Honorary Consul to the Carolinas and President of the Barbados and the Carolinas Legacy Foundation. Rhoda Green worked as a court reporter for 28 years in Charleston County, South Carolina, and was a National Association of Court Reporters member. In 1987, she obtained a copy of the Barbados Carolina Connection, co-authored by Dr. Henry Fraser, who is now Sir Henry, and Mr. Warren Alling, which roused an unlikely passion. The book captivated her interests and imagination as a native Barbadian and a current resident of Charleston, South Carolina, to untap opportunities between Barbados and South Carolina. Realizing the role Barbados played in the settlement of the Carolinas led her to do further research. As a result, she became active in the Charleston community to highlight Barbados and Carolina's shared history. She also became associated with several historical groups and organizations interested in history, heritage, and culture. Mrs. Green revived and served as president of the now defunct Carolina Caribbean Association for many years and received many awards and acknowledgments for work in the community, highlighting those connections. She approached and encouraged Barbados, particularly the Ministry of Tourism, to collaborate and facilitate engagements with South Carolina groups and organizations to further explore the shared history. Barbados acknowledged her contribution in keeping the Barbados-Carolina connection before the Carolina public by awarding her the Silver Crown of Merit in November 2000. In March 2008, Barbados commissioned her as its honorary consul to South Carolina. On June 18, 2012, Barbados and the Carolinas Legacy Foundation, which she founded and served as CEO, was registered and certified as a non-profit corporation in South Carolina to highlight, research, archive, facilitate, and promote opportunities for the Barbados-Carolina collaboration. Mrs. Green served as a past president for the Friends of Charlestown Landing, the South Carolina State Park, known as the birthplace of South Carolina. Charlestown Landing is where British settlers from Barbados landed and established the Carolina colony in 1670. She also served on the International African American Museum Board and still do so on its programming committee. She currently serves as a board member of the South Carolina National Heritage Corridor. Middleton Place Foundation, one of Charleston, South Carolina's iconic plantations with a Barbadian link, interviewed her to provide the Barbados link to South Carolina. The documentary received numerous stellar reviews and awards. In addition, she contributed to another documentary entitled Beyond Barbados with the SCE-TV. This documentary also received numerous stellar rewards and has been shown locally, nationally, and internationally. It also features a program for school children on South Carolina PBS stations. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite to the lectern this morning, Mrs. Roda Green, Barbados Honorary Consul to Carolinas and President of the Barbados and Carolinas Legacy Foundation.
Am I supposed to say a few things?
No, just a few.
You trust me with a few things?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is indeed an honor and a privilege to stand before you today. When I got the call and I was asked to contribute in some way toward the program you were celebrating, I was surprised, but I was honored. And I hope that that has begun an opportunity for real engagement. I bring greetings from Charleston. I bring an extended arm where we can link and we can share some of the things that Providence set in our path. I want to thank the blessed minister for her sermon today, because sitting and listening, there are two things that stand out to me. The way she explained the role of a model. Secondly, she also explained how we can emulate the model. And I find it fascinating. I find it an opportunity to reflect. I also find it as an opportunity to replenish. So, with a few remarks, here's what I would share with you. From a historical and a very lived experience, historians have called Barbados and what emerged here in 1627 as the Barbados model. Consider that. The government, the structure, the social order, everything that derived from the experience of our ancestors living in this space on this little rock was called and is seen as the Barbados model. That is the history and the record that we understand and we live by. This morning, what I have gleaned from the utterance of the blessed Reverend, is that being a model, I have been brought up in the church and I know the Christian way, and I depend on the guidance of God and His Holy Spirit to lead me in paths that I don't know. This journey about Barbados and the Carolinas was one of those paths. Unbeknownst to me, it just struck me as a bolt of lightning. But this is what I can reflect on, and I can think and put into practice going forward. It is almost a call to replenish and to become restored, because this has been a journey longer than 30 years. Sometimes not going in places that I know, sometimes encountering some obstacles that I didn't know exist, and sometimes pushing through and pushing on, because somewhere in my understanding, this was something I was called upon that is bigger than me. And here is where I see the connection. Barbados, our history, is fraught with a lot of harsh cruelty. That left an imprint upon we, the descendants. That places in a moment, in an era, in a time when people reflect, people want to forget, and people, in many instances, have lost hope. I would project, I would say that that has not been the thought process or pattern of Barbadian. One reminder is our ancestors, notwithstanding what they withstood and what they continue, they survived. We are evidence of that survival. And so, as I think in terms of what we've been doing, making those connections, the bio that Andrew read to you captures a whole lot. But what I think that we as Barbadians are blessed with, we have to recognize that blessing. It has value. It has utility. And we are the stewards of that history, not only for Barbados, but for the Carolinas, for the USA, and for the world at large. And so, what I see, following the model that has been espoused in the Thessalonian church, we can seize the high ground. We don't forget the past. We don't forget the pain and suffering of our ancestors. But we can step into their shoes. We can use our voices to voice what they weren't able to express. And so we have the opportunity, little Barbados has the opportunity to be the model of forgiveness, because we can't change the historical past, but we certainly can bring to the table a new perspective, reframe our history, claim our history, lift up the legacy of our ancestors, and make deposits in the young generation, the people who were prayed for here. And we can fast forward that. We can make a deposit for the future. The world is changing. A lot of upheaval. A lot of things that would cause persons to doubt. But we have our faith anchored to the Almighty. His providence has led us here. And in many ways, that is what has empowered us. So my brief words, my challenge is, we have the opportunity, we have the challenge, we have the model, the human model that we can implement even as we address history and all of the misgivings and all of the vestiges that still remain today. So seize that, own it. We are speaking for our ancestors, and we are extending the legacy that they left for us, for the next generation and the next generation. But we have to live it. Christians were known for their love. And I think even in a world that is riven with discord and hatred, Christians can still be models. And I have applied that to call it a secular way of understanding and a way of living. But we can let the beauty of Jesus be seen and felt the way we interact with others. And so what you've done today is allowed me to reflect, replenish, and again, seize that opportunity with all of the gusto, with all of the wisdom that comes from God. It is not all that we get from reading history. There must be some inspiration, there must be some holy directive that pushes us, particularly when what we are engaged in is not something that everyone sees and understands and accepts. So thank you for the privilege, thank you for the honor, and I extend this challenge to you. Barbados is a wonderful place. Barbados' history has defined it, but Barbados' action and the way it responds to world circumstances, we are the footmen, we are the people who will represent a new vision, a new understanding, not only to Barbados, to Carolina, but to the world. That is the way it has been. So let us seize that, and let us be encouraged by that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Minister.
Mrs. Green. On behalf of our precinct charge, Reverend Suzanne Ellis, the PCC, and the All Souls Church family, we present to you our heartfelt thanks for all your comments, for sharing your expertise with us on the 27th of August. And even though, we can hear the passion in your voice, we can see the passion as it relates to your home Barbados and naturally South Carolina. We appreciate all the work that you have done to keep the Barbados and the Carolinas connection active and to bring it to our attention so that we will never forget who we are as a people, what we have done, and that we can always be proud of this island of 166 square miles. Small in nature, but that's all. We have a big heart, and we are a powerful nation. So we want to tell you to keep the Barbados flag flying, keep the connection open. We look forward to one of these days, as the All Souls Church family and friends, to come to South Carolina and visit you. And we're going to work on it. I already have a couple that do not belong to All Souls that said, well, All Souls is going there already. So we'll work on that project in the near future, and we hope that we can come and see for ourselves and listen to the gullah language because we're intrigued by that. Yes? So once again, thank you so much for all your work that you've done for Barbados and South Carolina.